All right, welcome back, everybody, to conversation number 66 of the Test and Learn community. This time, we're welcoming Jenn Kunz, who's going to talk to us about why we need to stop investing in the wrong tools. Jenn is the principal architect at 33 Sticks. She is an industry expert on Adobe and Google Analytics and MarTech pixel implementations, tag management, and data analytics, and all things data layers. She has 15 years experience helping enterprise organizations solve their analytics problems holistically, no matter where they are in their digital measurements evolution or what tools they use. As a consultant at 33 Sticks, which is a boutique agency specializing in strategic analytics and optimization. She helps clients streamline the implementation processes and get more value out of their tools, decreasing costs and headaches for both developers, project managers, and analysts alike. And on the side, she uses her background as a developer to create free industry tools like the Adobe Analytics Beacon Parser and the mobile app Packet SDR. She loves helping and collaborating with others in the industry. Most days you can find her on the Measure, the TLC Slack, or Twitter doing just that. And more important than all of that, she loves Legos, which makes her my sister. We have everything in common, and I just adore her.
We are sisters in so many ways.
So many ways.
Fun discoveries.
Not just that, but thank you, Jenn, for agreeing to share all of your great knowledge today. And I'm going to stop sharing and pass the screen share to you.
All right.
And let you educate all of us.
All right. I'm infamous for sharing the wrong screen. So hopefully I will.
Not that one.
Nope. I had to wait for PowerPoint to kick in. So we should be good now?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So as Kelly said, I'm Jenn Kunz. I am a principal data architect at 33 Sticks, and we work in analytics and optimization. Principal architect, implementation consultant, really means that I help my clients get data into their analytics and optimization and other MarTech tools. And hopefully I'm helping them get that data into the right tools for their organization, which is what I wanted to talk about today. But this is not a vendor pitch. If anything, it is the anti-pitch, and I'm kind of relieved that I don't think there are any vendor sponsors on the call or anything. In college, my roommates always made sure to take me.
Thanks to our vendor sponsor, Conductrix.
There we go. Thanks, Conductrix. In college, my roommates would always make sure to take me with them shopping because I'm really good at talking people out of buying things. There's a reason I've never worked in the sales side of the business. And it's not that I don't like buying things. I definitely do. It's that I hate buyer's remorse. I hate the feeling that I set out to achieve a certain goal and I had a set amount of resources and I didn't achieve my goal and I don't have those resources anymore. And the reason this comes up is because our industry has a buyer's remorse problem. We are spending our resources without achieving our goals. Collectively, we spend more than we make. Now, there are certainly individual organizations where this isn't true, where the MarTech, the analytics, optimization teams are definitely generating value, in which case often the problem is they are not perceived by the rest of their organization to be returning the investment that's been made into them. And we saw that at the beginning of the pandemic. A lot of organizations, the marketing and analytics teams were the first ones on the chopping block. And those teams are still rebuilding, and we're seeing it again, that as companies get nervous about finances and the state of the world, there are a lot of very good analysts looking for jobs right now. So how do we get ourselves off of the chopping block? In a lot of cases, it is just a problem of we need to evangelize our value better. And June Dershowitz had a fantastic talk about that with TLC last month. Highly recommend it. But if we're being honest with ourselves, in a lot of cases, the perception that the analytics team is a cost center may actually be quite fair and legitimate. And it's hard for us to hear, and it's hard for us to even realize because we're not even often aware of the full cost of what we are doing. Either way, if it's an evangelization problem or a actual generating value problem, we all want to be providing more value and have that value be recognized by our companies. So what's stopping us? A lot of the time, it is a lack of time. This graphic is from a blog post that Jim Gordon did, Gymalytics, back in February, the Modern Digital Analytics Existential Crisis. It's a very good blog post, lots of very good points. But this particular graphic hit me like a ton of very depressing bricks, because it is just too true that we are spending so much time setting up and maintaining and validating and justifying and fixing our data that we are not actually using it to generate value for our company. And often that is also because of a lack of resources. Tolkien nerdery aside with this meme, it's actually a fairly apt metaphor, because if you take a very small amount of butter and you spread it over a bunch of bread, your bread doesn't taste any better for it, and you don't have any butter left. And I had to practice better butter a few times. We see a lot of teams that have 1 or 2 or 3 people wearing a lot of different hats and owning a lot of different tools. They are the analyst, they are the data validation person, they write the JIRA tickets for the developers to do data layer things or help with optimization tests. They do the test ideation, they do the test analysis, and spreading themselves across so many tools, instead of getting a little bit of value out of each of those, they get maybe some value out of some and then no value out of others, because almost it's a binary of either you're putting in enough effort to get stuff out of it or you're not. So we find ourselves spread thin and using our resources without always getting value back. In some cases, it's a lack of training, especially these days, education and enablement. Technology has been changing very quickly lately. I've been doing essentially the same role since 2006, and I feel like I've had to learn more new stuff in the last 2 years than the last decade combined, with consent management and privacy regulations, data schemas, identity merging, CDPs, server-side tag management, GA4 and web SDKs. It's a lot, and it's a lot to keep track of, and it's very hard to figure out which of those things should apply to your organization and what the best practices and the gotchas are. And you can't really get that knowledge without a conscientious, proactive effort, which you can't do if you're just too busy trying to keep your current ship afloat, which is where many orgs find themselves. And finally, to me, this is the biggest problem and probably the cause for the above 3, is that a lot of organizations just are not prepared to receive the value that their data could be giving them. And often that's because the data is kept in a silo, both data in the broader sense. There are a lot of organizations that they have data science teams and they have a lot of potential in that data, but it's not being used by leadership. It's not being used in user experience or content or communication decisions. But specifically, I want to call out web data because it's often kept in an even further silo. It's not even considered part of that data ecosystem. We had a client come to us a few years back touting that they were a data-driven organization, and they were able to show some very cool things they were doing with their offline data. And then they asked us to help them get analytics on their site for the first time. And this was like 2020, 2021. And they didn't even see the disconnect between being very proud of how data-driven they were and not even having analytics, not knowing how folks are getting to their site and what's working and what's not working, and not being able to have any data to help them know where to go next. If web data and analytics and optimization isn't considered part of the data ecosystem or isn't part of the discussions going on at companies, if it's not included in rooms where decisions are happening, then it doesn't have a way to really impact and drive the business. And therefore, it's not really providing value. Best case scenario is it's helping us feel better about decisions we were already going to make. So what do we do with these problems? As an industry, what solutions do we tend to turn to? We buy more tools, a lot of new tools. They update this MarTech map every year. We're now up to 11,000 MarTech vendors and tools. And a lot of them are very cool and they do great things and they have a lot of potential. But if you remember from the previous slide, these were the problems we were trying to solve for. And these are people problems, not tool problems. And if we don't fix these first, then all 11,000 of those tools are never going to have a chance to realize their real value. And we have to, again, think whether or not it's worth the investment we're making into them. The impetus for this presentation came about a few years back. I was starting to work with a new client that was in the middle of this exercise of gathering together all of the costs associated with their Web Analytics Center of Excellence, which also ran their optimization program. This shouldn't have been earth-shattering. You'd hope most teams are aware of their annual budgets, but I had never seen a team do this with the goal of answering the question, are we making back this money? Are we returning on the investment that our company has made into us? So it was very enlightening. We're going to go ahead and walk through this as a kind of hypothetical exercise for a hypothetical org and a hypothetical team. Going to look at their annual budget. So let's say they have an analytics tool, they have an optimization platform, they use a reverse IP lookup engine, they have session replay, and they've purchased a connection between Salesforce and their analytics tool. And then we have tools that support the tools. They have a campaign management tool to keep track of their tracking codes and make sure their marketing data is quality. They hopefully have a consent management platform so they can respect the privacy wishes of their users and stay on the right side of regulations. And maybe they have a web crawler client-side data validation tool that spots problems in their data before they become big issues. And finally, we have the people costs that, let's say they have 3 full-time employees, because all of the different above tools require a broad set of skills. They're working with 3 different agencies, which is expensive. And let's say they spend a chunk of change each year on conferences and certifications and webinars and the like. I get that a lot of these numbers are going to look ridiculous to some people. As a consultant, I do not get much visibility into the actual vendor contracts, and our industry has very opaque pricing. These are all legitimate quotes, though, that I've gathered over the years. They're just all for different clients. So some are going to be high, some are going to be low. But I think it's fair to say that a mid-size enterprise might be spending $2 to $3 million a year on their analytics and optimization program. There are going to be people on this call who see that number and think, oh man, I wish I had that kind of budget. And there are going to be other people who see it and say, I wish that's all that we had to spend. Either way, hopefully we're somewhere in the middle. $2 million is not a big deal for a lot of companies. It's a drop in the bucket. It's not going to come up in their earnings call. And maybe this team feels really good that they're getting a great deal compared to their peers. Or maybe they're getting fleeced and they don't know it because, again, pricing in our industry is very opaque. Either way, $2 million is too much for me to wrap my head around. I've never had that much money, and I have a hard time conceptualizing what that means in terms of value that I could be providing. So to make it less abstract, let's divide it into the weeks of the year. So now we have roughly $40,000 per week is being spent on this team. And at this point, our analyst is squirming a little bit, thinking, I spent all of last week working on that dashboard to show that Q1 went okay. Was that really worth $40,000? And we can make it even less abstract and go into days of the year, and not even business days, but days of the year. Have you and your team generated $5,700 worth of value for your organization today, or 1/365th of whatever your budget is? If so, awesome. Does the rest of your organization know that you have generated that value today? If not, or if you don't feel comfortable answering that question, you certainly are not alone. I think a lot of companies would struggle with that. And that's not even the full cost. That's the more obvious stuff we're thinking about when we're looking at new tools of the vendors and the agencies and employee resources. And hopefully we're aware that it's going to take some time and some resources to set it up. Then the further we go down this list, the more often these things aren't top of mind of, is it going to take money? Is it going to take time to train and to validate and to maintain? And what's it going to cost in time and effort to set up any necessary integrations? And finally, my own soapbox item of, is there going to be an impact to page performance? I spoke about this at the Marketing Analytics Summit a couple of years ago, that our marketing tags, all of the tools that we use do have an impact on page performance. I looked at 5 different sites from different industries across the web and found that some of them, up to 50% of the weight of their website was just MarTech stuff. Yeah, and that includes consent management, analytics, tag management, optimization, all of it. But it really does add up. And that's not to say it's not worth it. It might be, but it needs to be part of the equation. So sorry, tangent, soapbox done. So we've talked about the cost. How do we then make up that cost? how do we generate that value? And how much value are we generating each week? I think first, before we can answer that, we have to think through, why does our company even have a website? Hopefully, this is very obvious for most. Media sites want views, lead gens want leads. E-commerce sites have the very nicely straightforward desire for online dollars. While that one might hopefully be easy for most, the next question can be a little bit harder, of how do we then tie that website's goals to the bottom line of the company? Again, e-commerce has this nice and easy, but lead gen sites might struggle a little bit more. And I think sometimes we almost use it as a free pass of, well, we can't. There will never be a way to draw that direct line, but we know we need a website. We feel good about what we're doing, and we just move on. I had a client a few years back that sold toilets and bathroom fixtures, and this was a huge problem for them because nobody buys toilets online. They look at toilets online, and then they go to Home Depot or Lowe's to buy the toilet. So figuring out, well, okay, the website needs to exist, but how do we know that it's actually driving any of those sales? I've gone back and forth on how deep down that rabbit hole to go. It's a very interesting use case. There are ways that you can do it, break things down into smaller parts, figure out personas, and so forth. All of this to say, there are ways, and it's still worth the effort, even if it means taking one small goal on your site at a time. Are they coming because they just need to know where the location of your products are, like where they can go find it? In which case, they might have a different KPI than everyone else, because a bounce rate means they're finding what they want, and so forth. So it is worth the effort. It is important to still make that quantification, because then we can also quantify how the tools that we are using to support and improve that website are generating value. And when we're talking about this, really what we're talking about is what decisions are made with that data. Or also another way of looking at it is, how is the website any different because that data exists? We do have a client that could very happily answer that, are you making 1/365th of your annual budget every single day? And you all, Test and Learn community, will be happy to hear that it's because they have a really great optimization, personalization, and recommendations program. That is where the real value is made, because not only are they algorithmically changing their website per user every single day, but they also, their organization is built around it. They are using the data to figure out what changes they can make. Optimization is part of their roadmap and all of the discussions that happen around it. And it is all rainbows and unicorns and wonderful. But it's really hard for a lot of orgs to get to that place. It takes trust and building up to it, of showing, if you invest into us, we can return on that value. So please include us, invest in us. I do get that sometimes it's not about value being generated per se, it's about time being saved, or preventing risk or mitigating loss. But again, sometimes I feel like this is also a bit of a cop-out, because you don't have to quantify. You can just say, hey, we're avoiding possibly infinite amount of disasters, especially when we're talking like consent management and the like. However, if the time you're saving, or the risk you're mitigating, or the loss you are preventing are not supporting a system that's generating value, then they themselves aren't actually helping anything. I have an industry friend who's kept me apprised of a situation at his company where their consent management platform, they're using AutoBlock, which I have very strong feelings about. You can read up on my blog, digitaldata-tactics.com. The AutoBlock file that detects, which domains are safe and all of that, had some sort of bug, something to do with hashing, that was making it explode in size. Every day it was getting bigger and bigger. And it was bad enough that it was impacting their page performance. It was ruining their analytics data. And it was impacting it enough to bring down their SEO ranking. Now, the tool that spotted this problem and identified it was ObservePoint. So on one hand, we have ObservePoint that saved the day, that more than made up for it, whatever was being paid for it on that day. And then we have consent management that had been causing the problem. The thing is, neither of those tools would need to exist if they weren't tracking anything. So they wouldn't need a consent management platform, and therefore wouldn't have needed ObservePoint to save the day if they didn't have any of those tools on their site to begin with. And it really does come down to that simple of an equation of, Is the amount of money being spent, is that less than the amount of money that we are gaining? And I'll even make it a little bit vaguer and fluffier because it's not always about, dollar signs. Is the value we are generating more than the investment that's being made into us? This is fairly and undebatable. I feel like that this is the definition of profit. And yet, when we start thinking about, say, our hypothetical team from a few slides back that needs to be making $2 to $3 million a year to be making up for their budget. Let's say they're only making 1.5 million. And let's say they feel really shiny about it. Maybe they're doing better than their peers. All the same, $1.5 million is less than is being spent on them. If we're looking at just these cold hard numbers, technically their business would be better laying off that team, tearing those tools out of their site, and canceling all those vendor contracts. And that is very uncomfortable to think about. And I have a lot of knee-jerk reactions of, but how would they know about their user? Or what about the potential of their data? Or how would they answer these questions? First of all, so what? Who cares whether or not those questions are being answered unless they're providing value? If they are providing value, then our problem is we need to quantify that and figure out how to show that it is part of this equation and have it help balance this equation in the perception of the rest of our organization. If we are answering questions and we are uncomfortable with the thought of losing that data and losing the teams and losing the analysis, figure out how to say why. Why does it matter? Because odds are it does, and we just have to quantify it somehow. I literally make my living setting up and maintaining tools. So I can't say stop buying them, and that's not what I'm getting at. But it's important to buy the right tools for your organization. You have the right expectations, make sure it is the right time for where your organization's at, and have the ever-present goal of creating value. It is so important to meet your organization where it's at. If you are at a conference and you are seeing a peer business do a demonstration of some cool thing they've done with a new tool, and you think, ooh, I want that tool so I can do that cool thing. We need to reframe that question or that statement into a, ooh, I want my organization to be at the place that that organization is at, that they can get that kind of value out of that tool. Because usually that's the thing we need to be solving for. And we often lose sight of that. At 33.6, we have a matrix that we use to kind of evaluate each of our clients and where they are in their evolution, not to give them a grade, but to help figure out what their long-term goals are so that we know that the activities we are doing day to day are the things that are laying that foundation so we can eventually get to those long-term goals, because you have to have that foundation. You have to crawl before you can walk, before you can run, before you can fly. And you can buy the fancy, shiny new tool. You can buy the new hang glider, if we're going with this metaphor. But if you can't even crawl out your front door, you're not going to be flying anytime soon. So meet your org where it's at and lay that foundation now so that you can achieve those cool, shiny, future case things that you want to do with the new shiny tools. So when do you know that it is the right time and that your org's ready? If you know you have the resources, and that means time and people and money to support the tool throughout its lifetime. If you feel like you have a good handle on the tools that you currently have, if you don't feel like you are drowning trying to just keep your head above water currently, then you're probably in better shape. Sorry, I need to take a sip of water here. If you've determined that the tool is actually going to provide value, either by increasing the value of your current stack or just adding on to it, or finally, very importantly, you know that your organization outside of just your team is ready to receive and act on that value. If you can check all 4 of those boxes, then you are ready and it's time to up your game. There are also a lot of very bad reasons to buy new tools. I'll admit that I've included this as a bit of group therapy because each and every one of these has some traumatic experience for me, and I suspect that you all have seen some of them as well. So we're talking about things like the everybody's doing it mentality, tool FOMO. We are also afraid of being left behind in this industry that is evolving so quickly. We had a client that was told by an agency that if they didn't get on the social media conversions API, that they were going to be the very last ones in the industry on it, which first of all is complete BS. But aside from that, who cares? That might mean that all of their peers who got onto this new tool and required some investment jumped the gun. And that doesn't mean they're getting value out of it. And even if they are, that doesn't mean that this particular org is going to get value out of it. So again, it's important to meet your organization where it's at and to not feel pressure to get a tool just because it seems like the thing to do, which leads us to the next one, the check the box decision making. So a few slides ago, I had talked about the data-driven org that didn't yet have analytics. The saddest part of that story to me is not that they didn't have analytics. It's that they wanted analytics because they felt like it was time to have analytics. They didn't necessarily see how it would fit into their data ecosystem. They didn't have any real use cases or value that they thought they were getting out of it. They were a startup, they had been around for a few years, and they just felt sheepish that they were the size that they were and did not have any analytics. You don't get a participation medal for buying a tool. Just showing up is not actually providing value in this case. Here's one that I have trauma around, the idea of new leadership coming in and saying, I've only ever used this tool set. It is therefore the superior tool set. We're tearing out everything we currently have and putting something new in. This one's perhaps a bit more reasonable, that we feel like we're not getting value out of our current tools. This might be the way that it's set up. Maybe it is a legitimate limitation of the tool. Maybe it has a lot of technical debt and we want a fresh start. Now, I, of all people, definitely understand the desire to burn a technical debt-ridden implementation to the ground. However, there's a certain amount of humility that's required when we're looking at these as reasons for change, because if the tool that we currently have is not providing value, if it was set up wrong, or we don't have the resources, or we allowed it to get ridden with technical debt, are we the problem? Is our org the reason it got that way to begin with? Because if so, then we might just be setting ourselves up to repeat history. There is also the sunk cost fallacy, which most vendor proofs of concept rely on. The idea that we've put a lot of effort or time or money into setting this thing up, so we're going to keep using it, whether it's providing value or not. Now, there is something to be said for a tool that has already been set up, that's made it through your procurement team, that you already have some knowledge about. But just the fact that you've invested in it does not mean you should keep investing in it. There's also some other team bought it, and we are the ones who manage tags, and everyone thinks we have the time on our hands and the expertise, so we're now the owners of it. And similarly, if we don't spend money by the end of this fiscal year, that money's disappearing. So this is our one chance to get this tool, even though we're not ready. So we're going to buy it now, and hopefully we'll get some use out of it. Now, each of these things may actually be a good impetus for a discussion on maybe some changes in your tool set, but they alone should never be the main or sole reason for making those changes. So how do you know that your intentions are pure and that you are getting the right tool or making the right change for your organization? Here are some thoughts that you can go through that'll hopefully help you feel more comfortable with that. So first, make sure you're aware of all of the costs. And this is the exact same list I had earlier in the presentation, all the way down to the page performance. What I want to call out here by bringing it back up is that this shouldn't be an afterthought. This shouldn't be after the salesman has sold you on the new tool and you already think you know you want it. Then you get the vendor contract and you just send it over to procurement and budget and say, hey, can you make room for this? This should be something that is in our mind the whole time so that we can be answering questions like, will this tool earn back that money? Because it really is as simple as it has to be making more value than what it's going to cost. So how do these tools make money? Can we, when we're looking at any individual one of them, can we figure out, is it going to be direct revenue creation? Is it going to be, like we talked about earlier, preventing loss or mitigating risk? Maybe it's going to help with some of the people problems. It's going to make things more efficient or break down some of the communication barriers and silos. Maybe it's going to help inform user experience and product and communication and marketing decisions. All of those are great. To keep it from being too abstract and fluffy, we're going to use that week trick again and say, okay, so of those things, how much of that thing would it need to do every single week to make back that budget? Is that something we're capable of doing? Do we have those resources? And I really am talking about not budget here, but resources. How much time would we need every week to then generate that weekly value to get back up to what we're going to be spending on this thing? Do we have someone who has that time, who has that skill set? I'm going to call on Observe Point here, which I don't know if anyone from there is on the call, but I think it's a good tool. I love Observe Point. I use it. I've used it since it was brand new. I recommend it to clients all the time. But I've also seen a lot of organizations who have it who aren't getting any value out of it. And it's tough to see because it does have potential, but it is one of those tools that you get out of it what you put into it. You can buy the shiny, fancy, beautiful car, but if you don't have anyone in the driver's seat, it's not going to move anyone forward. Someone has to own the thing, and that person needs to have perhaps enablement and education and training. Maybe it's just they need more time. Maybe some outside help can help. So bring in agencies, bring in professional vendor services. I know the folks at Observe Point are very eager to help their clients get value out of the tool. But even then, someone from the client side has to show up and own it. And this is a really big problem because of resource deficiencies in our industry. So make sure before you buy the thing that somebody is going to have the time and skill set to use it. Keep in mind what your end goals are. And keep those in mind before you go and talk to any salespeople or see any sales demos. My husband and I recently bought a new car for the first time in over a decade. My kid's been in Scouts lately, and we realized our Prius was not cutting it for getting us to and from like backcountry campsites. And so we wanted something with all-wheel drive. So we go to the car lot. And modern cars are very different and very cool. They all got cameras. They all have air-conditioned seats. They've all got multiple USB ports in the back for my kids and all of their technology devices. And in the end, we were comparing 3 different options, and all-wheel drive wasn't even on the list. We forgot that that's the reason we had gone there. We were looking at, well, this one has air-conditioned and heated seats. That one has a great sunroof. So while the air-conditioned seats that we got have been a very nice quality of life improvement, I would have really been kicking myself if we drove off that lot with a car that then got stuck in the mud out in the Smoky Mountains, dropping my kid off at a scout activity. So make sure that you don't get distracted by the shiny things the tool can do and forget what your original goals were. Part of that too is, again, meeting your organization where it's at, knowing what your limitations are, knowing that the shiny demo they might be showing you is a best case scenario, and knowing whether or not that's actually going to apply to your org and your capabilities. And I'm not saying that necessarily to say, don't buy the tool then. If you tell the salespeople, these are our goals, and here are our concerns of how we will never achieve them, salespeople want to see you get value out of their tools too, and they will help you get a good setup for your particular company rather than just this is what we sell everyone for as much money as we can. In turn, we need to turn around and sell the rest of our organization on the tools that we are purchasing. In some cases, this is because there are other teams within our org who we can collaborate with and who will also get value out of it. I have a friend that works at Adobe. They presented this at Adobe Summit, so it's public knowledge. I can use brand names and everything. They work with Home Depot, who I also used to work with. And they presented about some really cool things they were doing with Adobe's Customer Journey Analytics, which I think is a fantastic tool, CJA, but it is broader in scope than what most analytics teams have worked with in the past. It is more expensive. It requires a different skill set and just kind of it's broader data science more so than anything we've worked with before. And therefore, a lot of companies have not adopted it. It's kind of slow to take off despite its potential. So I asked my friend, how did you convince Home Depot to buy this? and invest into it this way. And she said, we went to the data science team, and they do have a very cool data science team. They always have. I got to see some of the cool things they were doing, but it was always very separate from the analytics team. So she said, we went to the data science team and we asked them, what are some problems you currently can't solve or questions you currently can't answer? And they gave us, some suggestions in the list, and we were able to find a few of those that could be solved and answered by CJA. And now, not only did we have someone to help pay for the fairly expensive new tool, we had someone to collaborate with, so we actually got value out of it. And that then helped break down some of the silos that historically have always been there. It required forgetting our own use cases for a little bit, but it was very worth it. However, in some cases, there aren't going to be other teams who are going to be invested or have reason to really care. We still have to find a way to articulate why the tools that we want and the efforts we are making are contributing to our company's overall goals, even for folks who do not care about analytics and optimization. So figure out an elevator pitch. If you can't figure out that elevator pitch, then it might be that that tool isn't right for your org at this time. Speaking of working with other teams, integrations is something that we really need to keep in mind when we're buying new tools. Frequently, the reason we're getting new tools is because they integrate better in theory. Don't take the vendor's word for it that the integration exists and will do what you need it to. Frequently, the integration will exist, but it might not do what you need it to. And do not rely on vendor ecosystems. Just because Google and Adobe have bought everything does not mean they have made all of those tools work well together within their ecosystems. So make sure that it actually accomplishes what you need it to. I have a client that recently completely threw out their entire stack and re-implemented on a new vendor ecosystem because they were under the impression that this new ecosystem aligned better with their CRM because they're all owned by the same people. We're now over a year into that migration, well over $1 million, and they are realizing that the tool they originally had actually had a stronger integration that they just had never taken advantage of. And oh, how it hurts. So ask those questions up front and make sure that you're achieving those goals. And also that you're aware of what it's going to take to really set up the integration that you need and not just the out of the box thing that the salesperson says that they have so they can check that box. Also, this is a great opportunity to involve other teams in your org. Most integrations are between two tools and therefore might be beneficial to multiple teams. So that might be another way to break down some of those silos. Yes, the analytics team wants the CRM data, but the CRM team might also want the analytics data. And that would be one more way to get more value out of the tool for the whole org and not just your team. Ask around and don't just ask folks if they like the tool, ask them if they're getting return on the investment. We have a fantastic industry for asking these type of questions. There's the Test and Learn Slack community, there's Measure Slack, there is or was Twitter. Ask your consultants. I might not have a lot of Content Square experience, but I can tell you exactly what 6 different companies think about Content Square and how well it has worked for them. Ask people who have that kind of broader visibility, and don't just ask about are they getting the return on the investment? If you think you're getting the tool, also ask about maybe missed expectations or things that they wish they had done differently from the start so that you can go into it better informed than they were. Finally, make sure that you are aware of and taking advantage of the tools you already have access to. We mentioned earlier, there is benefit to tools that you already have that have made it through procurement and are already set up. This is almost like an after-school special of the answer was within you all along. Maybe you have a tool that's not perfect, but is it good enough? If it's getting you 80% of the way there, and you're really missing that last 20%, you have to ask, is that just 20% worth an entire change in our tool stack? Or how much can we just make do? Also, zoom out of just your team and see what other data-centric teams within your organization are using. I can't tell you how many clients I've seen that own every data visualization tool out there because each team is getting their own thing and not realizing that they already have access to something. They already have internal knowledge about a tool that they could all be using together. So communicate with other teams and see what other tools might already be there for you to use. And finally, really look at what the limitations are that you're trying to solve for. Is it truly a tool limitation, or is it the way you set up? Is it a lack of expertise? Is it a lack of resources? I'll admit at the very last minute, I was trying to figure out how to bring it back that Taylor Swift, I'm the problem, because that's what this is if we're the problem, how would a new tool set not have the exact same limitations in time? And I really, really want to dwell on this. Give your current tools a second chance. Somebody, when they bought this tool, had some grand ambition for it, maybe a little naive, but they had goals. They thought it was capable. But over time, life happens and it's, technical debt ridden or whatever. Here's a hint. You don't have to move tools to get rid of technical debt or to start over. You can move from Adobe to Adobe or from Google to Google with just a fresh start. I asked my 15-year-old to come to get a screenshot of this for me of business Steve with a wooden pickaxe representing, being at the beginning of a Minecraft game, because both my son and I have the same problem in Minecraft of restarting save files all the time, starting new worlds. Because once you get in, you have a grand vision of what you're going to be doing with it. And then, the world is less than ideal. It doesn't have the things that you want, or worse yet, you feel like you made a mistake in how you designed this house, or you died somewhere and lost some of your resources, and it's just better to start over. The problem with doing that is that every time that you have a complete new start, you have to learn all over, you have to find all over, and anything that you had gained is lost. So, in the Minecraft world, just move 3 screens to the right and start over. You'll still have more resources than if you were starting from scratch. Consider a fresh start with the tools that you already have. Maybe it's a matter of you need more budget or more resources to get more out of that tool. Instead of paying the $50K a year for a brand new thing, what could you do with that $50K to make your current tool set better suit your needs? That way, you're not spreading yourself as thin, and you have a better chance of actually achieving your long-term goals rather than just continually having a fresh new world where you can have all of the ambition and hopes and not have to deal with the fact that, real world is going to happen and make your goals hard to achieve, perhaps. All right. Usually I give more technical presentations and I like to have templates and code snippets and things like that. This is much fluffier and more abstract than I usually go. But there were things that I wanted to make sure were called out. So first of all, pay attention to the untapped potential of your current tools. It might be harder because we can't have maybe false optimism about what tools can achieve, but we have real world knowledge of what their limitations are, and we can get more value out of them with that knowledge. Sometimes less is more. It might be better to go all in on one tool and get the most out of it rather than spreading yourselves between 10 different things. Make sure that you are aware of the full cost of your tech stack so that you can also say you are providing more value than that cost, and make sure you are connecting that value to the underlying goals and the bottom line of your company. And finally, solve people problems with people and solve tool problems with tools, and don't get the two confused. The end.
Awesome. Amazing as always, Jen. Does anybody have any questions for Jen? I saw your comment, Nancy.
Oh, I didn't get to see any comments. I suppose I can open chat now.
Can't wait to share this recording with her experience analytics team.
This speaks to me so much. Just my past year of doing proof of concepts. Seriously.
Yep. Like I said, I feel like there's a collective trauma perhaps in our industry, but we don't always think about it or call it out when we're making decisions. So I hope it is helpful. Man, am I thirsty
I
now.
wanted to comment, maybe a form it into a question, but essentially, I feel like a lot of the times it comes down to leadership making a decision on a tool that can provide value, but then it also determine on the cost of the tool. And they, at least in my experience, tended to go with the cheaper option that I feel like, even though I brought it up, they tend to just go with the cheaper option and then reevaluate the actual tool later on that did provide or should have provided value.
Yep, absolutely. That is definitely a thing that happens. And unfortunately, I don't think I have a easy, like, here's some steps to follow solution for that. But I do think that a big part of it is establishing the relationships and the communication with leadership so that A, they trust you and they know that you are providing value. And B, just even having the line of communication open. So instead of them dictating, here's the tool you are getting, you can come to them and say, here are the cool things we're doing with the tools we already have. Here's why we think this other tool might fit in well. But that I get that that is definitely easier said than done, and it takes time to change the mindset of leadership to involve us more in those decisions and trust us more with the outcomes. I'm certainly happy if anybody else on the call has suggestions as well. That definitely is a thing that happens.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
Yeah.
I
Feel
have a
free.
question, sorry. Perhaps it might be also, we are looking at our analytics view and you have the marketing view. But recently I discovered that we are talking about value we are creating. And yes, we created quite a lot of value. But when you went up in the ladder, cutting budgets on our part, which was very hurtful, made the business value higher. So there might be decisions up the ladder that we don't know of. A CFO is looking at another type of value. He doesn't look at the value of a page or the value of a conversion. He is looking at the value of the complete company and is balancing that on a different act. And when they explained it to my client's team and to me that this was the reason that we had a budget cut of 50%, then you are going, yes, it was a real one. But then everyone took it, okay, that's true. That's he has a point. So what are we going to do now? And then reorganizing and looking at, okay, we wanted to upgrade some tools. We didn't do this. And everyone was pushing up their knowledge and being more inventive. And that is something I learned of it. So even if that's happening, or when you have, you don't get extra budget for your tools or something like that, it can make people more inventive, going to the highest part of the knowledge or going beyond. So it's not always bad.
No, yeah, absolutely. And I think that comes back a little bit to that less is more idea as well, of instead of trying to be the master of a whole bunch of things, well, now you only have one or two tools to work with, but you can really make those tools shine and work well for you. So I think you're absolutely right there.
Wow, that's fascinating. Well, thank you very much, Jen. Wonderful as always. The recording will be saved and to our TLC YouTube channel. And our next conversation will be with Getty, who will be sharing with us cross-channel analytics, marketing analytics. Is that right, Getty?
Yes.
All right.
And it will not be done from the Netherlands because it turned out I will be at Helsinki at that moment at a trade mission. So I will do it from there.
Well, that's even more
Right?
exciting.
That sounds cool.
Very exciting. So even more cross-global. Why not?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see everybody next time. Thank you, everybody. Take care. Have a great weekend.
Thanks,
Have a
everyone.
great
I
weekend.
appreciate you.
Bye.